Hey YouTube, I'm always post 975. I've kind of touched on this before, but there's a reason I want to ask this question, based on hanging out with a mate last Friday. And yeah, what is the worst a seller has ever, screwed you over, dicked you over? You've already agreed a sort of a deal, whether it's a verbal handshake or not, the sort of trade or purchase was in place. What's the worst? Because I've seen this before in other people's videos. People have talked about resellers screwing them over. People, in stores suddenly, reinflating their or overinflating their prices on the spot, or trying to renegotiate a deal even though they've agreed on something prior. It happens, and yeah, it kind of happened to me before. I've mentioned it. I never directly talked about it in much detail before, but I was after a PC Engine and I came across a really well priced one down the road in Swindon, and when I went to this person's house, they didn't want to sell it to me anymore. But what was worse about that experience was they didn't want to face me. They sent their mum to the door, who was, well, obviously very embarrassed, and I was sensing a little annoyed, not with me but with their son. So for whatever reason he didn't want to sell it. I don't care. I'm assuming someone offered him more money, but give me a phone call, mate. At least have the courtesy to phone me. Now, to put into perspective how I was kind of annoyed with this, I live in Bristol. This person lived in Swindon. It's about 40 odd miles away down the motorway, then you have to come off the motorway. It's about an hour. And then I actually had to cross a thing of legend in my parts. This. It's called the Magic Roundabout. It's a roundabout made up of other roundabouts. Now, it's interesting. It's like a video game. There's an easy route and there's a route for sort of more experienced people, and I like to consider myself, a reasonably decent driver. A couple of things though, I only went across it once and then came back across it again. So, I took the wimpy route all the way around. The other thing was, it's night. When I went to go and do this purchase, I went at night, and yeah, I relied on one of these, and these things aren't brilliant by any means of the imagination, but the fact that it's night, it doesn't help. And also it can tell you, where to turn and this and that and whatever, but it's not going to say, oh, by the way, people crash here all the time, or idiots come out of this junction, and stuff like that. So I did a full round trip, and what can I say? He sent his mum to the door. I'm not going to argue with her. And I was pretty pissed off. So that's like 2 hours, 80 miles, and fuel is expensive. But there was a silver lining to that cloud, and the fact that suddenly after this it rained PC Engines. I bought one off eBay, and then my brother sold me his childhood one from when he was a kid, and it's boxed, and yeah, just to keep it in family because he needed some money. And it was really cool because, do I need two PC Engines? Well, no, not really, but to have one boxed, even though it's not mint, cool. And also old technology, so it's always good to sort of double up on things that you play a lot. Talking to my friend though the other day, and he had a similar experience, and I was just like, holy shit, man, I honestly don't know what I would have done. He collects PCB arcade boards, and it's gonna sound crazy, right? He also lives in Bristol, and he drove to Plymouth in Devon. I'll show you. That's about 120 miles and about 2.5 hours in one direction, and then on the way back. But it was such a difficult board that he's a proper collector. For him to get his hands on, even factoring the price of petrol, it was just, to him, it was worth it. We're collectors. We do these things. We're passionate about these things. So he drove that again at night. Again, relying on a TomTom or whatever sat nav he has, and he said the same thing. That when he's going through these large parts of stretches on A roads and B roads where it's all dark and stuff like that, it's not a nice experience. He got there, and having already agreed to buy this from the individual, they told him, oops, sorry, I had a better price and I sold it, I forgot to call you. I mean, I honestly don't know what I would have done. I know he was probably pissed, and I did ask him, is that the other person still alive? And he said, yeah, they are still alive. But yeah, wow, imagine that though, having to make that journey back empty-handed, because having that wondrous thing you wanted to add to your collection would have been brilliant, to take the sting out of the journey. But to go back empty-handed, that's just unbelievable. So yeah, I'd like to know your story, simply because it's not necessarily that negative a video, but it's interesting because it lets you know, us know that what things have happened to you. Because I think as sort of retro collectors, you know, as I talked about before, we suffer a lot from it, but not as, you know, everyone who specifically collects something does to a degree. But you know, there are some stories out there about retro collectors, but it's also good to see the other side, which was, you know, what were you prepared to do to get something you wanted? So yeah, I just thought it'd be an interesting question. So yeah, what's the worst thing that a seller has done to you? Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.